everyone. I hope you had a great break. I'm excited to see you guys, but I want to just go ahead and get into this. Here we have the Book Buddy schedule. We are in this week of 412 to 416. Again, you are just reading 2 chapters or listening to 2 chapters this week, chapter 3 and chapter 4. Remember that if you are the one doing the main entry, the goal is to have this done by Wednesday night, so it gives enough time for the responder. Make sure to email them done, and then the responder, make sure you include some details from chapter 4, so it kind of is the way that you prove that both you and your partner have read both chapters for the week. So that's the schedule. I'm going to quickly recap because, of course, we had break and now we don't remember anything from the book, which is okay, but usually a quick recap can refresh our memory. So we have Janie. Janie is just your average teenager. Kind of starts out with her in math class or English class. And then, English class. And then, let's see, it's around, says autumn. And then we have, it kind of talks about some of her best friends. We have Sarah Charlotte and Adair Odell. And then it kind of talks about nicknames and stuff like that. And then we get to lunchtime. They're all sitting with their friends. And it talks about her being lactose intolerant, so not being able to drink the milk. But then she went ahead and decided to do it anyways. And then it kind of had those milk cartons where back in the day they used to put missing children on one of the sides of the milk carton. And then she kind of has this flashback of remembering that dress and like, oh my goodness, like the missing kid on this milk carton is me. And then she kind of has this realization that she was kidnapped. She really has no idea what is going on. Everything is kind of just like crumbled. And then chapter 2 is just kind of her panicking, thinking about what's going on, kind of all in her head. Like, did this really happen? Am I totally making this up? It kind of has some stuff about Reeve, which is her next door neighbor. And they hang out after school, and they ended up at a diner, and she kind of has this horrible kind of daymare, she calls it, where it's not like a nightmare because she's like daydreaming, but it's bad thoughts about this kidnapping. So she kind of is just like, there's a woman, she kind of has this flashback to like sitting at a counter with the swivel chairs kind of at a diner, and this woman that's around her like hugs her, and then she's trying to think like, who is this woman, what's going on? And then so she definitely has like a panic attack, seems like, and that is kind of where we left off with chapter 2. So I'm going to go ahead and read chapter 3 for you guys. Make sure you are taking notes while listening. That is the expectation. Chapter 3. There were no cars in the driveway. Her father couldn't be coaching soccer in this weather, so he would be pulling in any moment now. Her mother must be at the hospital. What day was it? She volunteered 2 days a week. The Johnsons' driveway was separated from Reeves by a thin row of shrubs over which Megan, Lizzie, Todd, and now Reeve continually backed. Only hours ago, Janie had thought joylessly of the day when she, too, learning reverse, would flatten a few bushes. You sure you'll be all right? Said Reeve. I could ask Mom to go over and sit with you. Please, said Janie, meaning no, and they both laughed. When Reeve's mother took care of a person, she took serious care. Bed rest, chicken soup, and pillow fluffing. On school nurse forms, Janie had always put Reeve's mother to phone in an emergency, and Reeve had always put Janie's mother. Reeve's mother always sat with Janie, rubbing her back, reading chapters from long books. Janie had to be in the mood for all that loving kindness. More often, when she was sick, she just wanted to be alone in the silence and the nest of her bed. How can I be kidnapped? Thought Janie. I don't even have neighbors who understand evil, let alone parents. She got out of the Jeep and dashed through the rain, putting her key in the side door. This opened onto a landing on the stairs between the cellar and the kitchen. Down in the cellar, next to the gleaming white washer and dryer, her folded jeans were stacked. Up in the kitchen lay a pile of mail, an overflowing brown paper bag marked for the Salvation Army, and the breakfast dishes. She scraped the dishes and loaded the dishwasher. It wasn't full enough to run. There was a note on the refrigerator in her mother's pretty script. Darling, don't forget class tonight. Home by supper. Love, Mommy. Janie hadn't called her mother Mommy in years, though she still called her father Daddy. Class, she thought, trying to make sense of that reminder. She walked through the house, touching. Same furniture, her mother liked deep, intense colors. The sofa and chairs were a blue so dark and rich they invited you like a deep sea to dive in. In the dining room, 2 walls were glass and one was bright red. The only decoration was an enormous framed color photograph of Janie, age 12, bridesmaid for a wedding. She was giggling in the picture, half bent over, trying to hold her tiara and flowers as it slid off her red hair. Janie disliked the portrait. She hadn't gotten her braces yet, and the uneven teeth seemed to take over the entire picture. But her parents loved it. How you adored that long dress, they would say, smiling into the photograph's eyes as if it were as alive. How proud you were, being in that wedding party, dancing with the groom, staying up till dawn. Janie climbed the stairs to her room, passing the ascending wall of photographs. Her parents disliked albums. They immortalized Janie on the stairs. Janie at the beach, on skis, in scout uniform, in her first dancing dress, Janie on their trip to the Grand Canyon, Janie in gymnastics, Janie at the middle school awards ceremony, Janie on the runway for the fashion show the hospital sponsored as a benefit. I'm sick, she thought, deranged. Imagining they kidnapped me. I mean, talk about proof of loving family. From the folded laundry to the refrigerator note, she remembered what the class was. Her mother had decided that she and Janie needed an activity to share. She picked, of all things, cake decorating. In spite of their past record at arts and crafts, the failed needlepoint pillows, the abandoned quilt tops, the unfinished knitting, her mother was convinced that she and Janie could be like the rest of the world and do something creative with their hands. The only thing Janie liked to do with her hands was put nail polish on them and dial phone numbers. Phone numbers. On the milk carton was a toll-free 800 number to dial, if you have seen this child. Janie froze 3 steps from the top, turning her head slowly, like a patient becoming paralyzed, neck stiffening forever. She forced her eyes to search among the photographs. There were no baby pictures. She had asked why before, because they never got around to buying a camera till Janie was 5, said her parents. But you didn't need your own camera for baby photographs. Every single store that sold baby clothes, from Sears to Bloomingdale's, from high fashion Tot to Toys R Us, had photographers, special portrait prices. Jenny Spring, taken from a shopping center in New Jersey at age 3. But I should remember, thought Janie. 3 years old is time to have memories. It's not as if Jenny Spring was 3 months old. She entered her room. It was the largest bedroom in the house. Since her parents and each have a small study, they had taken the little bedroom and given her the spacious master bedroom. Janie had a habit of leaping into hobbies with tremendous enthusiasm for a few months and then abandoning them forever. The walls and shelves were testimony to lost interest. There was the gymnastics display, when she had fallen in love with tumbling. Then were the horseback riding ribbons. From 4th grade, when she practically lived at the stable, there was the music, when she had intended to be the world's foremost flutist. The last piece she had ever practiced still lay open on the pretty little music stand her parents had bought her for Christmas last year. Janie did not share her mother's adoration of fierce, intense blues and reds. When she turned 14, they had redecorated the room by Janie's colors: ivory, pale rose, and faded lavender. The bedspread Janie had chosen was lace panels, all different shades and textures of white. It was too fragile to sit on. She folded the lace into a tube at the bottom of her bed and lay down on the plain, dark rose wool blanket beneath it. She was as rigid as a board. The mattress sank down while Janie's spine remained stiff. She ordered her muscles to relax, forcing first her shoulders to go limp, then her neck and her jaw. At last she sagged into the contours of the mattress. Now she tried to look inside her brain, to dip through her memory as if it were a card catalog at the library. Nothing. And yet memory felt oddly bright, not dark, not scary or mysterious, light, easy, good. There's somebody else down there, thought Janie. She shuddered violently, picturing another tiny little girl living at the bottom of her body, begging to get out. Janie wet her lips. The silence of the house was suddenly unbearable. She leaped from her bed, pounded down the stairs, flung open the side door, and ran over to the Shields' house. There were two. They were too close. They were too close friends with the Childresses to bother much with knocking. She opened the door, yelled "hello," and went into Mrs. Shields and went on in. Mrs. Shields was watching Lassie. There's probably something wrong with me, remarked Reeves' mother, but I adore all these old black and white reruns. They're so safe. Safe, thought Janie. It is not safe, said Reed, coming into the room. He had his physics lab book with him. The sight of Reed with an academic text in his hand startled Janie. Timmy and Lassie are always saving somebody from runaway trains or bottomless swamps or forest fires. Ah, but the kitchen, said Miss Shields. Nothing ever goes wrong in the kitchen. Have a chocolate chip cookie, dear, she said to Janie. Don't, advised Reed. She put icky things like oatmeal and bran into the cookies. Timmy, he told his mother, referring to Lassie's owner, would never have had to gag down oatmeal and bran in his cookies. Nevertheless, Reeve took several of the largest cookies and flung himself into a chair. He was one of those boys who don't simply sit, they collapse, snapping the legs off chairs and breaking the backs of couches. Janie and his mother waited for Reeve to fall on through to the floor, but the chair held him once more. Mrs. Shields, thought Janie, how long have you lived here? Darling, I am the Rara Avis, a native. I was born here. I mean, in this house. 28 years. Bought it when we were married. Do you remember when we moved here? I certainly do. You were the most adorable 5-year-old who ever drew breath on Romney Road, and your mother was the strictest parent. I shaped up once she moved in, let me tell you. Mrs. Shields smiled, a private smile of memories kept within to warn herself by. Why was she so strict, thought Janie. She had bitten off some cookie and now was unable to chew it. Little bits of dough and bran lay on her tongue and threatened to choke her. Because you were so bad, said Reed immediately. He and his mother laughed. No, Janie was always sweet, good, obedient, and courteous, said Mrs. Shields. I used to yearn for a Janie among my 4 wild animals. Why was I such a goody-goody, thought Janie. Was I afraid? If they stole me, I should have been afraid of them, not the rest of the world. Seriously, thought Janie. Mrs. Shields watched Lassie. Timmy's mother was wearing her apron. In old television, they always had on aprons. Janie fell into another nightmare of daylight. Her mind plummeted down into the nightmare, the way Reeves' muscular body had fallen onto the upholstery apron. It was white, heavy, almost as heavy as canvas. It had a bib. Her mother kept little hard candies in one pocket, and Janie could stretch up and reach her baby hand into the pocket to take out the one candy with a cell phone wrapper that crinkled. Oh, with a cellophane wrapper that crinkled. But her mother doesn't wear aprons, thought Janie. Life isn't like that now, said Mrs. Shield sadly. Too many dreadful possibilities out there, and hardly any lassies to save you. Mothers have nightmares about their babies, Janie, from drowning in a neighbor's swimming pool to snapping the spine playing football. I think all mothers fear that one dreadful accident when the child dashes out in front of a truck. Then some maniac snatches the child during 1 second the mother wasn't looking. Your mother had always felt that way, Janie. She's always been afraid. For what reason? Said Janie. She forced herself to swallow the dead cookie in her mouth. Reed becoming a host, which was almost as unthinkable as Reed becoming a scholar, handed her a Coke. What mother ever needed a reason? Said Mrs. Shields. I suppose because you were the only child. I had 3 earlier ones to take out my unreasonable fears on. Old Reeve here, I didn't worry about him much because I'd used up so much worry on the others. She and Reeve began a teasing verbal battle about how much worry he had caused her in his 17 years and was likely to cause the next 17. Janie stayed till the end of Lassie. The final scene was in the kitchen. Timmy, of course, had a glass of milk. Nobody in the old television gave their kids soda. It ended happily ever after with hugs all around and a barking collie. Oh my goodness, I'm late, cried her mother, throwing open the first door. Her mother never came in the side door. She liked to look around the front hall with its graceful mirrors and slender, elegant furniture, and into the beautiful living room she had designed. Janie, by any wonderful chance, did you start supper? We have our cake decorating class tonight. We've got to leave in 30 minutes. What's in the freezer? Anything we can microwave? Did you do your homework? How was school? She gave Janie a big hug and a little row of kisses down her cheek toward her throat. Daddy home yet? No. Janie stared at her mother. She tried to imagine her mother as a kidnapper, rushing into shopping malls and jerking little girls off soda fountain stools. But her mother was elegant, formal. She could imagine her mother raising funds for a scholarship for this little girl, but actually snatching her? Mother liked to conduct her meetings properly, with much consulting of formal rules of order. Oh dear, I hate it when we leave in the evening without seeing him. I hate not having dinner together. I read the other day that most families in America now have separate meals. Each one just grabs a bite on the run, a pizza here, a frozen Weight Watchers casserole there. I think that's so sad. Families no longer sitting down together every evening. And here we are, just like all the rest. I hate being just like the rest. Well, you're not, thought Janie. You're a kidnapper. Her mother was beautifully dressed. She hung her crimson wool coat and slipped off her high, slim heels. Her feet were very long and very narrow, and finding shoes was a real trial. Janie's feet were short and wide. There's nothing in me that's like her, thought Janie. Is it because I have none of her genes? Because she is not my mother? She forced herself to think of Adar Odell, who was so sleek. Adar's mother was a fat, messy woman whose offspring you would expect to be total rugrats. So lots of times kids don't resemble their parents. It meant nothing. Her father charged in the side door, full of energy from soccer. What a team, he said. He launched his first bear hug at his wife, and Janie would normally have run up for hers, but she found herself edging out of reach. What a season. I love my kids. They try so hard. We practiced in the school gym because of the rain. Can't stand that stupid principal they have down there. Good janitor, though. Big help. I can't wait for the next game. We have so much potential this year. Why are we having microwave pizza? Where are you guys going? Don't I even get to talk to my girls? He pretended to kick soccer balls around Janie's ankles. Daddy, stop it, she said. How can I embarrass you when there's nobody around to see? He countered. Tell you what, I promise to do this in front of all your friends one day, just for comparison's sake. Thanks, said Janie. Cake decorating, explained her mother. Do you think it's the right sort of class for somebody as weight obsessed as you are? Said her father. I won't eat any of it, said her mother. Sure, said her father. Listen, you two scarf down those awful frozen jobs. I'll make myself a real dinner after my shower. Love ya. Have fun. Bring me some cake. I want the most frosting. He charged up the stairs. They talk more than I do, too, thought Janey. They spout conversation continually, both of them. I have more listening in me than talking. The class was at the Y. The familiar hot chlorine and sweat smell of the pool met their noses. Remember your swim team? Said her mother. I was so glad you lost interest in swimming. There I'd sit with all the other mothers, waiting for hours till your heat came up. Then I couldn't even tell which one you were, and it was over in 3 minutes anyhow. Ugh. At least you took up riding. It was more fun. Why don't you go back to riding? I would have known if I known the alternative was cake decorating, said Janey. Mom, I'm dreading this. We've bombed out on watercolor. Well, you couldn't eat any of those. The taste tests will make all the difference. They took the stairs to the kitchen. The Y ran a soup kitchen by day, where her mother had not yet volunteered, but surely would before long. But in the evenings, the kitchen was available for cooking classes. Japanese, Chinese, Vietnamese, and French cooking each had a night. Cake decorating seemed backward and untrendy next to those cuisines. Think about all the calories. This is a dangerous hobby, Mom. Besides, you told Daddy you weren't going to eat any. I lied. Janey and her mother burst into giggles. There were 9 in the class. Janey was the only one under 40 and the only one not watching her pounds. I'm going to like this, whispered her mother. Next to you, I'm the skinniest person here. They leaned on cardboard, not cakes. They learned on cardboard, not cakes. They piped icing out of tubes, cloth bags, and paper cones. They used star tips and tube tips for flowers and ribbons. Janey could not keep the pressure of her tube even, so that for every attractive flower, she had a pitiful plop of icing instead. Yours looks like a very faded bouquet, remarked her mother. The instructor demonstrated flowers yet again. As Janey leaned forward to see the technique, she fell hideously into another daymare. The conscious part of her thought, am I falling into the cake? Will I be a pitiful fool in front of these women, my face covered with icing? The daymare was white flowers, white whipped cream, white ice cream, the pretty women, the whirling stool at the counter, and white shoes, tiny, shiny white shoes. We were shoe shopping, thought Janey, but who is we? Who am I? Now you try, said the instructor, putting the tube in her hand. Janey struggled to make a flower, but there was no white icing in the tube. There was a thin line of blue gel instead. She stared at the demonstration cake and saw that while she had been lost in a dreadful white dream, they had changed from flowers to writing. Her hand shook. She tried to write "Happy Birthday" with what was the birthday on the carton, she thought. When was Jenny Spring's birthday? Is it mine? And that is the end of chapter 3. Bye, guys. Have a great rest of your day.